Welcome to the People's Guild with me, Wasco, and my co-host, B Jangles.
We're a couple of Splinterlanders that love exploring all things Pretoria with a wide variety of guests from all across the community and Splinterlands universe.
Thanks for tuning in and enjoy the show.
Welcome back to the People's Guild. Another week, another episode. We've got a fantastic guest for you. He's had his name in the tournament pie for the past 2 quarters or so, and made a bit of a splash, and we hope to get into that here in a little bit. And he continues to cater and create these fantastic tournaments, and they correlate with some wonderful NFT artwork, and we're super excited to have him on. We just ran a tournament with him a few weeks ago to celebrate Chinese New Year. So welcome, Choonie. We're excited to have you, man.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks so much, guys. I very excited to have this conversation. I've been looking forward to it. So I can't thank you enough for the chance to have this conversation. We're really looking forward to it again.
Yeah, us too. I listened to you on Splinterlands 101, the podcast, and just shout out to them. It's a great podcast. And I was just really enthralled. And actually, even 5 minutes hadn't even passed, and I was like, wow, this guy is really interesting. Like, I think within the first 5 minutes, I kind of learned, you've been on the poker trail, you've been buying and trading American Eagles, which I've been researching a little bit about since that podcast, and your time in the market. So yeah, really excited to get down and chat with you. And I was just wondering if you could just kick us off with a big part of your life. You spent 30 years in the capital market game, and we just spoke off air about your time in Wall Street. And I was just wondering if you could just regale us with some stories of maybe how you got into that field, and possibly your toughest times during that time as well, and possibly how you would recover during those times.
Oh, sure. Gosh, I guess it goes back to always I'd call it a passion, always back in time, looking at markets, and I was always fascinated by numbers and how you can monetize that. And so, just pursued the passion, went to college, studied finance, was able to, I guess you'd say, land a job out of college as a securities regulator, as you call it. And what that translated into was looking at I guess the best way to put it is scams, just where people were being taken advantage of. And frankly, it's the bad 10% or so of the industry. It's not the biggest percent, but it seems to get the most coverage. So built a career in that. I mean, that was my entry point into it, is the opportunity I had. And so in looking at different ways things were manipulated in capital markets, work my way through, and ended up working in Washington, D.C., and then moving up into New York and looking at other things. It became ended up looking a lot at short selling and how that influenced the market, what role it played. There's the thing about capital markets is there's so many ways you can earn money. And so but as far as the difficult times, I would say if there was really difficult times, it was realization. And what I mean by realization, is how things work. And I don't know if people realize, but when you there's a lot that goes on in capital markets. So you can be a retail investor and see a lot of things, but there's also again, I'm using these terms loosely, but there's a game played at the institutional level too. And so there's a lot of that. If you're not on the outside, you're on the inside. If you're on the inside, you're on the outside. And that angle is played a lot. And there is a lot of things, in my opinion, that happen that are controlled by big players. And it's gosh, I'm trying to figure out a way to put it. It's there's a game within the game. And no matter what, though, capital markets is based on fees. And when I look at today's situation, when you look at DeFi, as we call it in crypto, um, a lot of it is based on fees. And so even translating that into Splinterlands, I think if you zoom out, I think I know you guys had Foyer on, and when he talks about the flywheel, how that how that resonates with me is that's talking about how fees happen. And so I think it's very important to keep in mind that that capital markets is fees, DeFi is fees. In my opinion, a lot of Splinterlands is fees, and that's not a bad thing. That's it. That's the situation. Um, but I guess getting back to Wasco, what you said about difficult times or realization, it was just really understanding how things work. And again, this is just my experience. Now, you could ask somebody else, and they're going to have a different experience in things. But um, there's a lot of sales. I mean, I think there's a lot of transfer risk, and what I mean by that is overall, you're not going to see big firms holding a lot of risk. The key is, in my opinion, is to transfer risk to an investor, a retail, us, me, you, whoever, and get it off the books. And in addition, to charge you a fee to do that. And so when and I'm trying to bring it back to this, the cryptocurrency world, a lot of DeFi is based on that too. A lot of these projects, it's the same thing. It's transferring that risk to us and making fees. And so, again, zooming out, that's where I land with a lot of it. And so I don't know if I quite answered your question, Wasco, but as far as stories go, gosh, I could write a book on it. Looking at everything from short squeezes, which we saw with like everybody talks about the meme stocks. Okay, short squeezes were happening. Just so everybody knows, short squeezes were happening years before that kind of stuff. What I think crypto brings into it, or what the internet brings into it, more specifically, is a transparency. It happens that now you can see short positions. It's more transparent, and then generally speaking, people can make a move on those short positions. Back in the day, you could only see short positions in the Wall Street Journal, and that only came out, I think, once a week. And it was called hard to borrow. So you look at stocks that were hard to borrow. It's things like that. And so the transparency of everything has made it so that a situation like a GameStop, a Bed Bath and Beyond, an AMC, all that can happen with smaller investors. People can key in on those kind of things. So, and frankly, that's what cryptocurrency brings too. There's just a lot more transparency. But there's just so many stories of I hate to say it, but manipulations, things that happen, and frankly, I was listening to I think this latest town hall, and just guys stop me if I've gone off too much, but this latest town hall was very interesting because there's a few things actually in the last couple town halls. One, when Aggie made, maybe it's a town hall before this last one, when he talked about the reward cards and things like that, and okay, we're no longer going to print them. In my mind, that when you look back, I think we're going to find out that was kind of the bottom of things, and because you could feel a change. And so, but then when you look at what he was talking about now, recently with these town halls, or the most recent town hall, it's, how can I put it? It's like it's the idea of these projects, it becomes more apparent. They're bigger than what I think people perceive them to be, and it's not a bad thing. It's almost like, it's like love it or leave it in the end. That's the way I look at this. And so when you look at what at least with Splinterlands, where I'm really positive on things is, I've always been key. What I've been really thinking about, to me, is, okay, first question more than anything, and you got to give the team props on what they said, because transparency is everything. And credit to them, because back in November, around those layoff times, they said, hey, by the way, besides the layoffs, we got concerns about runway. They called it runway. Okay, as soon as I hear a firm say that, that to me means we got capital needs. we need money. Let's just put it, we need money. And so, again, props to the team for saying that and being transparent. And then now move forward. Where I became encouraged about things is that, and this actually went further into, because Aggie came on to the Gank and Walking Keys show subsequent to the town hall, and to me, you gotta watch. You mentioned the poker thing. Seems like I've tried a little bit of everything to break out of that system, right? I'm using air quotes here. You can't see me, but the thing about it is that when you look at the way the team looks, acts, they got some more swagger to them. A lot like Jay Powell looked, in my opinion, in this last meeting, with the FOMC meeting, got a little more swagger to them. And I think the key to that is because they got some more confidence. And in this latest town hall, it comes up every once in a while about runway and capital needs. And Aggie said it himself, look, as long as BTC, as long as our tokens stay where they are, we have plenty of runway. We don't need capital. And then when you watch his body language, hopefully I'm not being too over analytical. He's probably going to may get a text on this, but when you watch his body language, it's even more positive because he's talking about a bigger picture. He's talking about the company being, frankly, in my opinion, a consulting firm. Hey, we got Splinterlands, we got Tower Defense, we got, GLX, we got those things. But what I'm keen in on it is it's a bigger picture type of thing. I mean, how it's perseverance. And so where I'm going with all this is that very positive on when you look at all those kind of signs and things and the way things are is it just feels better. It looks better. It sounds better. And to me, the one thing that I don't think enough is said about it, I know it's a difficult topic. It's a difficult question, but if you got enough capital, I'm here. To me, that's it. Can the game survive? Yeah, of course the game can survive. The game's surviving. I mean, the game's got to be played, but we have a host. It's like a symbiotic relationship. It's the company and you got the game. Well, I mean, and so in the end, if the company makes it, or the company can survive, the game, as long as it's played, will make it. And so I'm just very positive because of what I've seen as a change. And so, again, I mean, gosh, I went off on a great tangent there, but what I'm trying to say is things feel better. Not only they feel better, they look better because I'm looking at the team. I'm looking at the way they're acting. When you look at and this is important when you're making a decision to invest in things, you got to really look at the details and mannerisms. And so when you talk about even Yaba, the town hall before this one, I mean, he looked like a little kid with the land. It was just like on and on. It's like having a toy. It's like he went on and on. If you remember as a kid, I mean, I remember having my favorite toy. What if we did this? What if we did that? And I just thought that was just so positive in seeing that different feel about things. Anyway, I don't know, Wasco. I didn't do a good job of answering your question, but with it all, yeah, capital markets is a big. It's a big thing there's so much going on, and it depends on your vantage point when you're looking at things and how you enter, what role you play, whether you're an analyst, an investment banker, an investor, an issuer. I mean, it's a big industry, obviously. But I think the key to it all is just remember, DeFi is just a digital representation of that. There's no doubt in my mind. And it all comes down to fees. And everybody's got to remember that. And I really believe strongly with the Splinterlands platform, bringing it more down to where we are, is it's all fee based. We got to make sure the team, it has their flywheel, to use Foyer's term. Make sure we got the fees going on, And then where I come in, or that's the stuff I think about is let's just make sure the game's being played. That's the lifeblood of the game. And then the lifeblood of the company, in my opinion, we don't have financials in front of us, but the lifeblood of the company is fees, and that's okay. That's it. If you and Aggie made a very impassioned speech about that at the last town hall. He talked. I think he put in the context of the Nifty Arcade situation, but it was impassioned, or it had a lot of passion. And it really was down to, and I'm going to sum it up, and this is my opinion of it, is love it or leave it. This is the way things are. We got bought. I get as salty as the rest of everybody else. And I'm in the TNA Discord and one of their guilds. I think Wasco, you and I, we compared notes. I mean, I started off with Dwayne with Infidel, and but anyway, the bottom line is, at some point we all got to realize it's this is it's nothing. We can talk, and we can, of course we'll debate, we'll do all those things, and that's the intangibles I think the game brings. But at some point it's going to be love it or leave it, because the other part where I bring in the capital markets, the view from it all is, I think all of us have to keep in mind is we're not equity owners. We're not owners. We own tokens. We own SPS. We own whatever everybody owns, but SPS is not equity. And so everybody gets very impassioned about the DAO and voting and all those things. And it's great that the team's interested in feedback. That's what keeps me going too. I mean, there's many companies in the world they'll say they're interested in your feedback, but they're not. Okay, let's just say it like that. I mean, and so I think that's the advantage we have here. The team listens to our feedback, but they're not obligated to. And Aftersound kind of brings this up, in some of his comments lately. It's like, we're not entitled. We're owners of a token. We're just not equity owners. And even, let's face it, even as equity owners, I mean, what if you had 10,000 shares of Microsoft, which is a big investment these days? You really think in a proxy fight, you're really thinking something like that your vote's going to influence them? I mean, bring it all down to the basics. What I'm trying to say, I guess, in a long-winded way too, is I think Splinterlands is a good representation, and this shows you how accurate it is. This shows you this brings volition to what it is. It's very accurate to the way the real world works. When you look at a DAO vote, we look at proposals. Gosh, and I've had my negative feelings about some, I have my positive feelings about other ones. But the bottom line is, the way these DAO votes go is it's going to be the biggest SPS owners are going to control the vote. Well, that's no different than in the real world, where the largest equity owners are going to control the vote. And again, that's the way the system works. So at some point, you kind of got to, you can't get too upset about it. I mean, you can express your opinion, which is a great benefit, a great intangible with the game. But gosh, I don't know. I'm just trying to say, just don't get too upset about it. And to me, the volition is that it works like the real world does, at least in my experience. But goodness, I don't know. I went all over the place. So I don't know if I answered your question.
Choonie, the tangents are welcomed warmly here. Brilliant. I do. So you started to kind of connect the dots as to why you have taken it upon yourself to kind of be this tournament curator for, partnering with some of the biggest content creators and names in the space. And I want to get to that here in a second. But before we do, let's talk about your kind of entrance into Splinterlands, into Hive. I know we've kind of exchanged some notes off air, and you talked about this on the Splinterlands 101 podcast with those guys. Your entrance into video games, it began, gosh, I guess better part of 40 years ago with Atari, and you've kind of stuck with your passion for video games. I think you mentioned, even as recently as the Nintendo Switch is your platform of choice, and that's mine too, waiting for Breath of the Wild 2 to come out. So let's kind of converge these two roads. So I think it's easy enough to understand the financial appeal to Splinterlands and the economy that's happening within the game. But on the video game side, and what was it that kind of initially attracted you to Splinterlands? You know, we briefly talked on, you know, the transparency, the town halls, and that's something that personally has drawn my eye. Very, and the town halls have become very near and dear to my heart. It's certainly a piece of my kind of Monday, Tuesday usual routine at this point. But yeah, I'm curious, what was it that initially attracted you to Splinterlands over some of the other kind of blockchain based video games, and what was it that kind of made you stick around?
Oh, okay. So all right, be a little more focused this time. So you're right. My background is
we'll see, Choonie.
Good point. So yeah, like you said, gosh, I mean, older player of the game, no doubt. I mean, in my 50s, full transparency there. Yeah, it started off, I literally walked into Sears Roebuck or Sears Roebuck and bought Atari. Bought the thing back in the day when it was Pong. And so I've always been a video game player and love video games. Great escape, great, and a positive escape, frankly, from the real world when you need it. And so as time went on, always played video games. And then, of course, I was a coin collector for a long time. And what happened with that is my time in New York, I also studied computing, specifically computer networking. And so was never shy about, computers and gravitated to that digitization and virtual reality was a concept many years ago. People have always talked about that. And so anyway, as a coin collector, going through everything, heard about Bitcoin. And I was like, gosh, a digital coin, what is this about? And so that's where those two pieces came together.
Hey, Choonie, I'm going to interrupt you real quickly. Can you give us a timeline on this? I think you mentioned 2012, 2013 was your kind of entrance to Bitcoin. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. Roughly around 2012. I'm pretty sure it was around 2012. Became aware of Bitcoin. And so when I heard about it, it's gosh, a coin. I can collect digital coins. What is this thing? And then since I was comfortable with computing, I learned the fact that you can mine it, that concept of mining. So back in those days, I had learned how to do it. It was, I actually ordered, I think it was on eBay. I'm trying to remember how I got to those, but Bitcoin miners, I think they're called butterfly miners. There were these black boxes and they looked like an infinity symbol, but it looked a little bit more like a butterfly. So I had bought, gosh, 3 or 4 of those. And then with my computing background, literally at my house, I was sitting in the basement and I literally laid out motherboards on the floor of the basement with some components and plugged in the Bitcoin miners. And back in 2012, the one exchange, so, now marrying up my capital markets background, an exchange is loosely, it actually was a market. Yeah, that's it. That's right there. Yeah. Yeah, you're bringing them up. Exactly. I had the one that's like the big one there, the one with the fan. Actually, the one, yeah, that's it. Actually, one of them I had was smoking. It actually said smoke was coming off of it. So I guess it was used pretty hard, right? But so I had plugged into, and again, I don't want to get too much into semantics of capital markets, but there is a difference between an exchange and a market. Everything you see in cryptocurrencies, by the way, is a market. It's not an exchange. But so there was a market, and the market was called CEX.io. And what happened is you could plug in these miners into that, and you could I don't know all the details, but you could mine the Bitcoin. Of course, the hash rate comes up, and you have the machines. And so what I was doing is I was pulling down Bitcoin. I had set up the wallet, all those kind of things. And I think back in those days, Bejangles, it was I think Bitcoin was trading around 600, like on that exchange, around $600 or so. And so I found knowing my running around with the coin collecting, I found a coin dealer, and it was a woman actually, and she was willing to trade my Bitcoins for American Eagles, silver American Eagles, which is what I collected, one of the things I collected. And so I was trading Bitcoin for silver American Eagles, and I was chuckling because I was like, "This is digital alchemy." You read, if you go back in the days, alchemy comes back to people putting noxious chemicals together and making gold. And so anyway, so long story was short with that. I was making that trade, which turned out to be a bad trade. Obviously, I mean, I got a stack of about, I don't know, about 6 inches of American Eagles. I could look at those right now and think, well, when Bitcoin was trading about 60,000, like, well, I think that cost me about $300,000, and each coin's worth about $18, right? So I don't even know what amazing the coin, but
You got to call up your collector and see if there's a statute of limitations on a refund, bro.
oh, I know. Or do you still have them is the question, right? I mean,
Yeah.
because everybody's like, oh, what if you put $10,000 in Microsoft? It's like, yeah, but if you really did that analysis, like nobody kept it. Somebody needed a house, somebody needed to pay for college. So that to me that's clickbait. I don't want to hear about that. What if you had $10,000 in Microsoft 20 years ago, right? But um, but anyway, but back to your question. So all that came together, and and so I was doing that for a while, like you said, back in 2012. And then, fast forward, of course, the digitization of everything. I've always been fascinated about the fact that you can take Bitcoin, you can put it. I think it's eight decimal places, as they call it, satoshis. You hear Aggie say splintoshis for SPS. And whenever you have that, you have such residual everywhere. So I partnered up with a very good friend of mine, a phenomenal Python programmer, and I didn't know at the time, but now fast forwarding with Splinterlands is I didn't know we created a bot. And so I was telling him, I said, we got to figure out a way to mine this stuff because as time went on, the hash rate became it just you couldn't do it. You couldn't do it to a point where you're profitable. And I mean, just to backstep a little bit, I even went to the point where Litecoin, I had bought ASIC miners, and I was doing that. And back in those days, you'd go to this pool. They called them pools. You plug in, you donate your hash rate, and then you get out what you got. Of course, you never knew if your payout was accurate or not. But anyway, but long story short, so Litecoin, I was the first airdrop in Ethereum. I donated Bitcoin and got the first ETH, whatever it was. I think got 132 coins in those days, and of course sold them at $9. And now I'm kicking myself because I don't know what they went to. I don't even want to know. Dogecoin, same thing, hundreds of thousands of Dogecoin, and those went out to I bought and sold those well before got rid of them before everything took off. But with all that said, I was talking to the guy, my friend, and there's a way to mine Bitcoin without using electricity at this level, and the hash rate doesn't come into play, and also the you don't need the equipment. And what you can do, and I learned this, I just marrying up my capital markets background, knowing what about structured trades and transactions. You can structure transactions so you have a residual, and it gets back to there's eight. Whenever there's eight decimal places, there's always residual, even even if it's digital. And so we came up with a way with all that. And gosh, for 1 year there, it was just about 8 months. We ran a bot, I guess you'd call it, a Python program, and I think we had over 37,000 transactions. It was insane, but it was like these little bits. And I think if you were to an analogy for it was, if you hear these stories about back in the day, like Roman emperors or whatever it was, they would nick a coin. They would nick like a gold coin and just nick it and take that little piece of gold, and it would add up. Well, frankly, we figured out a way to do that. And so, as time went on, I knew we could make income off of that. Now the income was Bitcoin. And of course, we know, where Bitcoin went up and down, and and so we had dry powder. We had books throughout the whole order book on Binance, and we went a little bit into FTX, but we were everywhere on that stuff. And but long story short, we only had so much money. So once Bitcoin got to about 28K, I think it had a 28 handle, 27 handle. We only had enough, so we stopped, and that's where we sit right now. Frankly, if it goes back up, we're gonna operations will continue. But getting back to, I'm trying to get it back to Splinterlands. What happened is I big fan of video games. I mean, big fan. I was like Borderlands 3. I mean, I just go on and on of all the ones. Right now, I'm playing Elden Ring, trying to figure that one out. That's a whole puzzle in and of itself. But I came upon, I heard about how, making money playing video games, cryptocurrency, of course. And I just frankly did a search, and I discovered Splinterlands. And more specifically, I discovered I discovered Dwayne and Bulldog, and I think Luke. Was it Luke Plays Games? The Krill crew. That's who was hot then. And I just got enthralled by it. I just thought, gosh, you can play a video game and make money. I mean, and I think Aftersound says it best. Hey, this all begins with earning, being able to earn. I mean, that is, I think, what attract a lot of people, at least in those days. And then I started looking at it, and I know people are going to hate this analogy, but I don't know if you guys ever walk into a bowling alley, where you bowl. I don't know about you, but I look at that, I'm like, I'm down, dude. I'm gonna knock so many pins down. There's no doubt I'm gonna do this. Well, when you start doing that, no, that's never gonna happen. You're gonna bowl like a 60 or whatever it is. And what got me, what I always look at when I look at bowling, it's like, that's so hard. That looks so easy. That's so hard. And Splinterlands is the epitome of that. The game looks so easy, but it's so intricate. And then with my poker background, that was I'm not at a gank level. I never won the World Series of Poker bracelet, but certainly played tons of poker. Back in the day when that was online, and played a few tournaments on the World Poker Tour. But that element is in Splinterlands. It's a card game. It's a simple card game, but it looks simple, but it's not. And so all that just came together, and I just gravitated to it. And then coupled with the game itself, you have the DeFi platform, which I can't emphasize enough. DeFi is a digitization of capital markets. Every structure you see in DeFi, I mean, at least me, I can draw analogies back to capital markets. Securitization, FX trading, a swap transaction. Like when you look at Tribal Desk, that's a swap desk. When you look at, I mean, there's a lot of there's a lot of FX transactions that happen and there's frankly, in my opinion, there's securitization going on. So it just all came together, and it was just such an attractive platform. And so that's how I ended up, and that's how I stuck with it. And then as time goes by, I mean, I just think there's so many intangibles to Splinterlands, and I can't say this enough. I mean, so what I mean by intangibles, it's things like, goodness, like they say, Steve so Stever's in our Discord. Well, he's one of the most generous people, in my opinion, you're going to see. I watch I watch what he does, and I frankly, in my opinion, I think he loves being generous. You look at like Infidel, you look at Dwayne, he's such a positive person. Okay, well, his, what I think Splinterlands gives him, again, in my opinion, correct me if I'm wrong, but it gives him the avenue to be positive. It's so sincere. When you look at like a Walking Keys, what is he? He's a collector. He's clearly a collector. He loves the Roonies. Look at his background when you're watching him. Well, Splinterlands is a collector's dream. You look at Gank. What is Gank? He's a game player. He's a poker player. Well, Splinterlands gives him the chance to be a skilled player. And then like a Darkest Night. I remember the one day I was watching the one. There's a stream. After Sound can be talking and talking. Next, Darkest Night interrupts him, claps his hands with a big smile on his face, and says, "Let's play a game. Let's play a game." And so that's his passion. It's the game itself. It's that intangible. Same with Boba Fett. When I was on with Matt Clark, what you guys are talking about, and that crew, they wanted to play a game after the interview, and I remember looking. I even said something. I said I was looking at Boba Fett. I said, I told him, I said, you are smiling from ear to ear. You're grinning like a little kid. This is what the game brings you. I mean, put all the SPS, all the DEC, all the money-making mumbo jumbo aside. It's those intangibles. And then just to get a little bit more personal, I'm not going to name names, but I've heard a few content creators talk about how they lost, like, say, their parent, like things like that, like a true loss. and they were on the couch, depressed. What happened? This game got them off the couch and they started playing. I mean, just think about that. There's no money. There's, there isn't anything money can buy. That got somebody who basically stopped for a moment. It got them started back. So, so when I, as I've stuck with the game and been around, I hear the stories. That's what keeps me going and all that kind of stuff. It's those intangibles that this game brings. And so, what I mean, I just feel like, hey, let's give back. And to me, the lifeblood of the game again is to keep playing, just like the lifeblood in living or in keeping going and the lifeblood in living, in my opinion, is to keep moving. Well, the lifeblood in the game is to keep playing. And so let's just keep playing the game, in the end. I mean, put all those other things aside. So I guess that's what's kept me here. That's what's hooked me. And in the end, that's what I think what I'm doing. Let's just play some games, and what's the incentive? Okay, I don't have enough money to like have these big prize pools and things like that, but I sure enough have enough little time and a little bit of money to create some NFTs, have some fun. I like being creative about things. And let's just keep, just to keep the game alive. I think all of us we all got to contribute a little bit back to keep things going. So I think that's, I guess, to answer your question, B. James, how did I stick with it? That's what made me stick with it.
Yeah, it kind of feels also that people are starting to play a lot more. Maybe it could be, or I think it is the release of these new soulbound reward cards. And I was just wondering, like on that podcast, Splinterlands 101, you mentioned that you're very happy in silver and you're very content. And you mentioned something that's really interesting that I would like you, if you can, just to share it with everyone. And you talk about building your deck like sideways. Could you explain why you do that? And another thing as well, like why are you still content in silver when number one, the rewards in gold, diamond, champion are more, obviously. And some may argue that the gameplay, okay, maybe not necessarily better, but there's just more abilities open up. So it definitely changes the gameplay. So if you could just speak about that, that'd be great, man.
Sure. So I think some of the best advice I ever got in my career through the years was it's more important most of the time to move sideways and not up. And when you move sideways, what happens is you gain a very large tool chest. And as time goes by, and I think as you go through your careers in life, there's so many dynamics to it all, obviously. And what happens is the bigger your tool chest, the more you can deal with or have frankly the tools to deal with what comes up. And it really gets down to it's playing the long game. Nobody likes the long game. Everybody wants the short game. Let's hit the home run. But it really comes down, and it's that thing about delaying satisfaction. But it does pay off. It's difficult. It's a lot of sacrifice. A lot of times, frankly, you're wondering, what the hell am I doing this for? What happens? But I guess what I would say is I would assure you that if you stick with it long enough, you see the results. Your children grow up to be phenomenal people. You realize your wife supports you the whole time and you have such a strong bond later. So I really believe in that in the end, I mean, not all the time, but most of the time, it's more appropriate to build a toolkit and move. And you do that by moving sideways and getting exposure and things like that, and not moving necessarily up. You can move up too soon, but you don't have the toolkit, and you're going to find out you're going to get knocked back down. I mean, that's corporate life. I've lived it. I see it almost yearly. But now translate that into the game. So what I did was I said, okay, well, what you realize when you look at, say, even at a silver level where I'm at, There's so, especially now too, with Rift Watchers, reward cards, all those things. What my goal has always been is to have a deck at basically, I guess I'd say at silver level with the most abilities. And you can do so much with those abilities. So in the end, what I can do, let me just be frank. I mean, if you see the Choonie coming, you don't be quaking in your boots about some kind of killer player, right? Because I mean, I'm not. But what I will tell you is, and so in ranked, so I bifurcate the game in a lot of different ways. But say in ranked play, I do use a bot for the most part. I use Splintermate. I was using the Jones bot, but anyway, but what I've been able to do with a deck moving sideways at silver, and I know this isn't necessarily what the team wants to hear, but I mean, I'm ending up at Diamond 3. So that just tells you how you can leverage the abilities. Now, to your point about the challenge and the game itself, what I would say is, and when you look at the tournaments that we do in our Discord, I mean, you guys are in it, so I'm gonna say our Discord. Um, I feel strongly that silver is the entry level. It's or at least it's the level where if you're going to enter the game, you're going to start there. Generally speaking, unless you go right straight in and you buy a gold deck or whatever you're going to do. But I don't know if that's very typical. But silver is the entry level, and frankly, probably silver is the exit level. If you're leaving too, if you're selling your assets, maybe you're moving back down into silver. But the challenge it brings, and a lot of us, I mean, we probably experienced this. Remember back or harken back to when you get stuck back in bronze. Bronze is extremely challenging. Why is it challenging? Because that's just another aspect of the game. That's how dynamic this game is, where frankly, a gold or a diamond player, a champion player, I don't think that it appeals to them. And they're going to say that the abilities, the cards aren't there. What I'm going to say is no, it's because you're not familiar with the game at that level. And that's another way that the game challenges you. You got to be able to adapt. Again, another metaphor, another lesson in life. You got to learn how to adapt. And so I don't feel like I'm missing out on the game itself if I'm not playing in gold and things like that, because I know if a champion player comes down into silver, which is how I set up our tournaments, because I want them to be frankly, open to everybody. But I think a champion player, like I remember one night, we hate to keep bringing him up, but Gank was sitting there and we're on his stream and he's entering the battles for one of our tournaments. And he says, gosh, I got my, I'm paraphrasing, but I got my butt kicked. Well, it's because he's not familiar with silver. Well, that's just another way the game is challenging you. It isn't to say you're lesser of a player because you're in silver. That's not the case. It's because, again, it's just a challenge. You're not familiar with that part of it. And so I don't feel like I'm missing out by staying in silver. And I'm not saying I'm going to stay in silver. I mean, I've augmented some of my cards. I could move up into gold if I want to. So I mean that's, I guess in the end that's how I feel about it. I think it's based on how what's your experience, what's your entry level. And I frankly don't have all the abilities at a first silver deck yet. I know I don't. And so there's more work to be done there. And then of course it gets down to how you use those and what kind of a player you are. But I mean look at somebody like I'm going to mispronounce his name, but he's in our Discord now. But like a Schnampoon or a Weiwei or whatever, good luck. Okay, good luck if you're a champion player. Come on down to silver and play Weiwei. Okay, he's going to beat you. Sorry, I got some fire here. He's going to beat you. Overall, 50% of the time, so to me, it's just that's how dynamic Splinterlands is itself. So, anyway, you got to wait out, but and then I guess Wasco, to answer your question too, is I think at some point you can't worry so much about the rewards. So, granted, I know in silver you're not earning as much, you're not earning as much in gold, but I just if you're going to play the game, if you're going to bifurcate the skill of the game or the earning part of the game, okay, the skill part of the game, I don't think you should worry about rewards. If you want to do the earning part of the game, well, then I guess you got to think about it. Okay, is the investment in a gold deck, a champion deck, whatever you want to say, Is that a good trade? Again, I'm going to put on my capital markets hat here. Everything comes down. Is it a good trade or not? Okay, so is it a good trade for you to put in that kind of money and earn what you can? Maybe right now, I mean, candidly, maybe not, right? Because I mean, you're talking pennies. However, I get it that SPS can go up. All those things can go up and things like that. And maybe soulbound cards can one day be sold for more money. Well, fine, but that's a risk, and you got to weigh all those things in your head and make a decision. So I think in the end, if you figure out earnings versus skill and what you want to do, I think you can rationalize silver versus gold, all those kind of things.
Yeah, great response, Choonie. And this, Waskell, I wonder if this popped into your head as well. Kind of hearing your thought process on the challenge of silver, and I'm right there with you, Choonie. I competed in the tournament that we set up a few weeks back, and I've competed in a few that you've established since then. And I typically play diamond and champ, and coming down to silver, it's a completely different ballgame. And to paraphrase your paraphrase of Gank, I got my butt whooped. It's a different ballgame. But yeah, as you were kind of talking through the skill of the game, and kind of leveling sideways, moving sideways within the game, before you're starting to level up, made me think a lot about. We had a great conversation with a fellow YGG guy. Shout out to Rogue Patton. And that's kind of the first guy that came into my mind when you were talking through that, and something that I've heard kind of as an alternative or a supplement to everybody's least favorite rule set, back to basics. Once you get to diamond champ level, there's been talk about the idea of introducing, instead of back to basics, offering hey, this particular match rule set is going to include silver level cards only, or gold level cards only. So removing sets of abilities versus the entirety of abilities, which I think presents a much more interesting dynamic for those players that are accustomed to having the whole slew of 4 or 5 abilities upon the bottom of the card. Because yeah, man, I that comment resonates with me completely. I'm a fish out of water when I'm competing in bronze and silver, and it's a tough racket, man. So I commend you for competing at the highest levels, and getting into Diamond 3 with a silver deck that's no small feat, man. That's a testament to your ability and possibly to Splintermate as a companion.
That's what I was going to say. Splintermate. But I think I mentioned this. Sorry to interrupt you, BJ. I think it's important to also to look at this platform. You got to bifurcate it. I mean, to me, in my opinion, rank rewards is yield farming to some degree. Now, I do think, Waskell, to what you said, it has changed recently. And what I mean by that is, especially the last couple seasons, it's become more difficult. I think Aftersound had a video up where he showed how there's less accounts. And obviously that's probably the bot farms, moving out. Now, I don't know if they're going to eventually come back, but in the end, I guess what I'm trying to say is, with rank rewards, I mean, to me, that's yield farming overall, and bots are there, and love it or leave it. That's it. So yeah, in that regard, I get to Diamond 3, and thank you, Splintermate. But I think the essence of it all comes out to the tournaments itself. And again, sorry to interrupt you, Bjangles, but I think it's important. I want to bring this up is because the reason I reached out to you is I was listening to one of your podcasts. Don't remember which one it was, but you said something. You said, I feel like tournaments are like sacred ground. In other words, bots shouldn't be there. And when you said that, I was like, yes, because when I'm playing a tournament, it's a skill thing. It's not an earning thing for me. I'm over in rank rewards in my deck, and hey, I got the Diamond 3, good deal. But when I'm playing those tournaments, it's a skill thing. I want to compete, and so to hear that there was bots there, it was just like, oh no. And that's when it bothered me, and that's when I decided to move our Discord up a level, or I should say, really get involved and say, let's form something where we're all committed. We got skin in the game, and we're committed to not using bots. And frankly, I don't think you need like I know Weirdbeard obviously talks a lot about um, making it so you can have bot free tournaments, whatever it takes, fine. But why not have a Discord, which is ours? Everybody's there who's earned it. They've won a tournament. They earned the NFT. You're in there because you earned it. And then like you guys, I mean, I can't say enough. I mean, you and all the other content creators, I'm very grateful for. I mean, you're putting your brand out there. I mean, you know how much it takes to form these things, to get these things going. I know how hard it is to keep the content going, but you guys do. You do a great job of content. I listen to everything. And so, you're taking a risk with me by putting skin in the game and saying, I'm going to sponsor this tournament, and you put your name there. And so what I'm trying to say in the end is trying to find like I don't know if you say a sacred ground, but a spot where you can go and it's all about nobody's using bots because they choose not to use bots, not because they're forced not to use bots. And I think that adds intrinsic value to what we're doing, to what this Discord is, to what the NFTs are, whatever they turn out to be, right? But it's just that's again, it's an intangible things money can't buy. DEC and SPS can't buy. I mean, and if you don't want to be there, that's fine. Again, your choice. You're in there. There's no pressure. Do what you want. So sorry, I digress a little bit.
No, man. Yeah, you also mentioned which was really interesting about A1 as well in that podcast, and how people shouldn't bemoan these new I'm going to sound going to like the next word like gadgets is going to kind of probably like show my age, gadgets and whatever's, but these new things that are coming, and I was listening on YouTube as well about how we shouldn't be scared of things like A1. We should kind of start to embrace it, and even whatever your field is, you should learn the skill. You should learn how to use it to take advantage of it. I was just wondering, and then when we did our tournament, our Bruce Lee themed
Right.
tournament, honestly, me and like Ben, we were just blown away by the images. Like at the beginning, we were like, like me personally, I was like, because you said to me, if you want to change anything, just let me know. And I was like, oh, but it's gonna take you so long. Like it was just, I was thinking, and then I just threw back a couple of ideas, and literally 10 minutes later, you just kind of threw out like 10 amazing, mind-blowing images. And I was like, whoa. And then, we later found out that you're using this. So I keep saying A1, right? But it's AI.
AI, yeah. Midjourney is what the platform I use.
Okay, yeah.
There's so many out there, and even since we've talked, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you? I don't know.
No, I was just laughing at myself that I keep saying A1. So you can definitely tell that I'm not computer literate whatsoever. But I was just wondering if you could talk about your feet, like your thoughts for A1 and oh Jesus, there you go again. AI.
AI. Oh, well, gosh, my thoughts. I mean, so recently, so since we did our tournament, which and to me again, it's a tangent. I'm gonna throw this out there. I can imagine the both of you as we're doing. By the way, for everybody's hearing this, you'd be shocked at how many versions of a rabbit you can come up with. And so it was like, well, let's try. But I think in the end, I do have a vision of both of you guys laughing as you're like, let's do a rabbit with a Bruce Lee look, and the jumpsuit, the whole thing, and even me as I pop it into in AI, at least in Midjourney, it's called prompt. It's called prompting. It is as opposed to artists. You're called a promptist. And there's many videos on YouTube. I mean, the barriers to entry to this are obviously very low. And I think AI wants that to be that way. They want it easily accessible. So Anyway, so yeah, if you're a creative person, you can use Midjourney. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do. I think Matt Clark alluded to the fun he's had with it. If you want to listen to that podcast, but yeah, I guess in the end, what I would tell you is there's been a big sea change, especially even today. There's been some announcements. I think Google stock and don't quote me. I was traveling today, but I'm looking at the headlines. But Google stock took like about it went down about 8%. Meanwhile, Microsoft's went up. And the whole idea is because Microsoft has invested into Chat GBT, which is now this the most popular name out there for artificial intelligence. And then the idea is, okay, that's going to be a new search function and something we're going to use. We're going to use going forward. Where Google, of course, they're all built on, or the core of what they do is search, and they're not keeping up a pace with that stuff. So you're seeing that those reactions happen, at least again in the capital markets world. But I think what AI is going to do is you'll see this. There's some lawsuits going on now. I think Midjourney's referencing one of them about copyrights about these pictures that are coming up because like for instance the term I put up with I think it's called the champagne challenge. It's for New Year's, champagne bottle. But I said, hey, a champagne bottle designed by Da Vinci, a champagne bottle designed by Jackson Pollock, on and on. I tried to, just to, but if you think about it, I mean, who knows? Maybe the state or whoever Jackson Pollock is upset because you can do that. So there's a lot going on with those things. But in the end, what AI is going to do is, bringing it back to what we did for your tournament. I felt like, and I'm not saying this in a negative way at all, but I felt like I was kind of like your creative department. It's like you're walking in, you want to do a campaign, you want to do something. Like, well, what about this? What about that? Well, I type in some prompts, and it does take some skill. Or I don't want to say it takes skill. It takes patience. It takes a lot of just banging it out. Boom, boom, put this in, see what happens. But if you were to think about it, if you were dealing with a person where you said, oh, let's talk about a tournament relative to rabbits and the Chinese New Year, what would you come up with? It could take somebody a long time to design that. It could take them a week,
Just
right?
one, yeah, just one picture, right?
Yeah, and then and it comes back to you guys. You're like, yeah, and then you think about, oh, well, what about the 1970s jumpsuit? What about Bruce Lee? And then you're like, okay, so then you got to rely on somebody else to come up with something like that. But here's what this AI does. It's literally, you guys, we were DMing each other in Discord, right? And you put that out there. Okay, yeah, but a rabbit that looks like Bruce Lee in a 1970s yellow jumpsuit. Poof, you know. And of course that took a while for us to get there. By the way, hey guys, everybody's listening to this. These guys work you out, man. They keep going down the rabbit hole, no pun intended. But it was easy. It was easy. I like to do that stuff. Even me, I'd laugh. I was like, oh, wait till they see this. Wait till they see this image. Wait till they see this image. Even you, Wasco, you wanted what you want. You wanted Dr. Blight combined with a rabbit. Like, oh, wait till he sees this one. And so, but getting back to the thing, that's the intangible. I enjoyed it. I laughed. It distracted me from the whatever it was last year. All the negativity. This way, life has a lot of negativity. It distracted me from that. Those are the things that you can't monetize. It's worth it. But I think with AI, what's going to happen in the end is, for what I'm seeing as the trend, is it's going to allow us to interact more with the digital world. It's going to kind of be I guess you'd say, an interface. And the way it's just, so like, you can right now, you can just say, hey Siri, what's a barbecue restaurant near me? And it'll come up with something. But I think what AI right now, that in particular, what I'm seeing is this chat GPTI is the GBT, as they as they integrate it into other platforms, which I think is Microsoft's goal. You're not going to have to type it. You're just going to be able to speak it, and it's going to talk to you and tell you. And so I think that's going to, again, what is it going to do? It's going to save us time. Time is the most valuable commodity in the world. It's like it's that concept. When you're young, you're the richest person in the world because you're a billionaire. You have billions of seconds. What is it like? 1 million seconds equals 11 minutes. 1 billion seconds equals like don't quote me on it, like 30 years. I mean, that's the difference. And that's what AI is going to do. I think it's going to allow us to get time back. But of course, just like everything else, it'll probably move on and used in ways we don't want it to be, and all those kind of things. And who knows where it goes. But and the other thing I think I said in that podcast, which I mean, I got to admit, I think Bulldog said this too. I heard a comment today from Steve Wozniak too. I think it was on CNBC as I was listening. But the thing that shocked me the most is I was always a big believer in Renaissance, and the fact that humanity has Renaissance, and computers can never replicate that. But I got to say now, the things that I'm seeing, I was wrong. And I think Bulldog said something along those lines. I thought I heard generally what Wozniak said today was the same idea. Whoever would have thought that computers could have Renaissance, meaning they could create? Because let's face it, let's get back to the NFTs we were working on. I was just typing in a request. It was all up to artificial intelligence to bring that to fruition, and that's all Renaissance. That's all creativity. So to me, that is a real game changer, and we're gonna have to get comfortable with that. But again, what can you do? I mean, we're all just part of this. You're not gonna be able to stop it, especially the fact now that you have large corporations that think they can make money on it. Forget about it. We're gonna have to deal with it. And so in the end, I don't think it's all negative. It's probably not all positive, but it just is. And we gotta move on.
It probably goes back to what you said before, right? Everyone's just got to learn how to adapt.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I mean, it's well, hey, that again, that's what life's about, adapting. And so we'll see where it goes. I mean, no doubt, is it the hot button issue? Maybe a year and a half ago, what was the hot topic? Again, everything. I hate to say it, but it all comes down to bucks. I'm a baby. I'm a baby of the '80s, the '90s. The Reagan era. It's all like earn. It's all money. It's all money. Whatever else, everything else is secondary. So, and that was the way that was the culture back in those days. So, like a great movie. If everyone wants to watch a great movie that represents that time is Wall Street with Michael Douglas. Oh gosh, I can't think of his name right now. Like guy who drinks tiger blood. Anyway,
Gordon Gekko.
Gordon Gekko, and then whatever. Charlie Sheen. So, but everything was about. There's so many lines in that. Everything's just conversation. Everything else is, or what is it? Everything's conversation, or everything's about bucks. Everything else is just conversation, and that was the culture then. But I guess what I'm trying to say is. That's where AI is parked, and it's going to be it's here to stay. But it's just we'll figure out where it goes.
Yeah, it's been so first I want to call out we may have just secured a new sponsor for the podcast, A1 steak sauce. Holler at us. I was wondering where you were. I was actually, as you started talking about A1, Kieran, I was going to ask Choonie. I must have missed that on the podcast. I listened to it. Can you tell us what A1 is? But yeah,
I gotta say this real quick. A1, the line is. I'm going to show my age here. The biggest marketing thing for A1 is it's not chopped. It's not chopped ham. It's chopped steak. So why wouldn't you put A1 in your hamburger? Anyway,
really?
Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say the accelerated timeline is absolutely incredible. So for those of you kind of on the outside looking in, we went back and forth for probably a good week before we settled on the NFTs that were going to be particular for the tournament that you curated for us, Choonie, and credit to you for sticking with it and continuing to kind of prompt out new generations of NFTs and artwork for us. But you're absolutely right, man. We must have gone through probably easily the better part of 100 different iterations of what does that Bruce Lee inspired yellow jumpsuit toting rabbit look like before we settled on the final 10 that ended up making it as prizes for the tournament. But Yeah, the accelerated timeline is absolutely incredible, man. And it's going to be an interesting ride to see where it goes. You know, we've already seen the advent of, I don't know, I'm sure this has come across your purview, Choonie, but you know, a few months ago, probably 12 months ago at this point, I heard some AI generated music, and the prompt was there were a few different ones that kind of really stood out to me as you know, head and shoulders above the rest. You know, there was a Jimi Hendrix inspired track, there was an Amy Winehouse inspired track, and if you didn't know their library, you would assume that this was just a deep cut that had somehow, you know, hid under the radar. But it was entirely removed from their library. They just, you know, the AI generator, you know, looked through their discography and you know, pulled kind of mannerisms from their singing, from their guitar playing, from their band style, and recreated a new track that fits right in and slides right in as you know, it very well could be part of that, you know, Nirvana playlist, for example. It's incredible what AI has done, and the leaps and bounds that it's made in the last, gosh, I don't even remember, you know, when AI first became such a big player, but it feels like within the last 12 months that it's just kind of exploded.
Well, and just to interject on that one, a few days ago on YouTube, and I will say I think a lot of it was leveraged as clickbait, but there was I'm a Bitcoin maximalist, frankly. I mean, I can been around long enough. I can bifurcate Bitcoin between Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, but um, a quote from supposedly Michael Saylor. They said, "Oh, this is Michael Saylor talking, and he's talking about how he wished he would never went into Bitcoin." Now, anybody who follows, you know, all this kind of stuff, you're gonna know he's the king. I mean, he's a Bitcoin maximalist to the nth degree. Well, and you can hear it. He's like, "Oh, I wish I wouldn't have done this." I'm paraphrasing, and pudgy penguins. He's raising all these things, and I've listened to enough of his stuff where I'm like, yeah, I know that's not. I don't think that's him anyway. But that's what AI's done. Just so in the last few days, I guess now there's an AI platform where you can upload 30 seconds of you speaking, and it can pretty much come up with a lot of different sentences of things you didn't say in your voice. So, you
Unbelievable,
know,
man.
it is, but you know, that's the world. I mean, and of course, there's always been those, you know, the conspiracy theorists were going to come out and say, oh, well, you know, there's always fake, you know, fake photos and fake, you know, fake this and fake that. Well, hell, you know, maybe in the end, let's face it, DARPA had internet for a long time. You know, finally it got it. That the next leap was when it got publicly available. Maybe that's where we are with AI.
Yeah,
And you
I
know,
wonder. I wonder how far away we are from somebody like Pixar Animation Studios, for example. You know, securing a big stake in something like Midjourney to create full feature films. Based, you know, all you got to do is plug in stories and plots, and all of a sudden, this AI can just generate full feature films head over heel. Right? That's got to
yeah,
be the
well,
next iteration of this stuff.
you're right. A good friend of mine is a big comic book collector and things like that. So he's writing his own comic book, and he's always had the story. It's a Franz Kafka thing, you know. I mean, a Franz Kafka, but anyway. But now, though, he's told me, he says, I have my own art department. He's plugged into Midjourney. He's got all his stuff, the story he wanted to write, and now he's got the pictures to back it up. He doesn't need to hire people to create those images. And you know, and of course, you know, that's, I mean, I'm sure the graphic designers or whatever you call them, I mean, they're feeling threatened, you know, but goodness, again, it gets back to, I can't believe, I guess I can now, but the ones and O's, dots and O's are now have renaissance. And that's a deep thought. It's a deep thought. So,
Yeah. How with regards to we were discussing about the NFTs that we did, and
mhm.
I just want to talk about, and we can move on to the tournaments that you do as well. But with regards to the tournaments, there are NFTs up for grabs and fantastic ones. I've seen the ones After Sound has done, the one Darkest Night has done. And just want to say as well, you've pulled in some of the big boys for these tournaments as well. So kudos to you on that. And maybe you could talk about how you kind of the methods you go about to kind of involve these people with your tournaments. But could you also talk about the utility for the NFTs that people can win? Because this is like one of the negative aspects. What people will say about NFTs, is just like just you throw money at something that's got no utility. But with your tournaments, they definitely do have utility. So could you talk about that as well, please?
Sure, sure. So I guess the easy part is, going about it as far as getting people involved and what have you. I really believe, it's about passion. It's about passion for the game, and that's all this is about in the end. It's just people who like to play. I don't think a better demonstration of passion is for like you and Wasco, like Wasco, you and B Jangles. I mean, you have a passion for what you're doing, and so reach out to you're obviously valuable content creators with the game, with everything like that. And so I mean, who else has more passion than you guys? Well, I mean, I'm not gonna say more, but I mean as much. Well, okay, well, After Sound, we know that. We know Walking Keys and Gank. We know Dwayne. We know, Tales from Cryptmancer. I mean, I'm like his. I think I want to. I know. I think I'm his first subscriber. Again, I want to real quick shout out to him. He loves to analyze. He's one of the best analysts I've ever seen ever. Now, what does Splinterlands do? It's the intangible. It allows him to be an analyst. Again, you could, he'll say he has a passion for the game, but I'm saying he has a passion for analyzing things. So, but anyway, but back to this question. So, the whole thought process was, let's just. I'm trying to come up with a way that we can bring all the passionate people together. And to me, again, the easiest thing to identify is content. The content creation, because I know what kind of work it takes. It takes you guys a lot of time, a lot of just like, what's the next thing we're going to talk about, that people want to hear, and all those things. And that's extremely challenging. So, and to the extent I can help you guys give it back, I mean, you give me a platform here to to talk and ramble as I am. So, I mean, that was the point of that. And then the other part too is coming from where I came from, there's a concept of self-regulation. People will say it doesn't work. I would say long term it does work. What I mean by self-regulation, I mean because you're deciding to play by the rules, to be there. And I think our Discord, that's what it's about. It's you decided to give me the chance to say, hey, People's Guild is going to sponsor this tournament, and you're taking a risk with me that I'm not going to be, frankly, a jackass. I'm not going to come out and say some kind of crazy stuff. And frankly, once you say you sponsored a tournament, because I asked you, are you willing to let me put your name on it? That's all it is. Well, of course, then that's your risk. You're saying, okay, I agree. Hey, Choonie, you're not gonna, I don't know, you're not gonna say something crazy, whatever it is, and then discredit you. So to me, that's the skin in the game you guys have. All the content creators. But the harder part, the harder question is the utility. I don't honestly overall know. I mean, there's a few of our members that have asked that question. I've tried to answer it the best I can right now, and I think right now the utility is we're all here. It's a digital platform. We're all in one spot. Maybe the Discord becomes influential. Now, I will say, I'm not trying to, it has accrued to me. I mean, and I'm not trying to be selfish with that, but let's face it. I mean, well, I'll say it this way. So, Weirdbeard, I mean, he has a roundtable going on where he's asking for feedback. Now, he reached out to me. I mean, out of the blue. I was like, oh wow, and asked me to sign an NDA, like a lot of us are. I don't know if you guys have got one of those, but asking for feedback on, I believe it's tournaments going forward. I think the first meeting's tomorrow, and there's one on Saturday. But candidly, I would have never got that. I mean, I'm just another player. I mean, frankly, average silver player, right? With a deck with a lot of abilities. Oh, big deal. So, but he reached out to me. Now, the only reason that happened is probably because of this Discord. And so there comes the influence. Now, I mean, but I want that I hope that accrues to everybody. And I think a lot of you guys do, especially the content creators, you all talk to each other anyway. It's not like, oh, you don't know each other, but as far as utility goes, Wasco, it is difficult because, the bottom line is, I can't tell you what these NFTs are worth. I mean, that's where a lot of it starts. A lot of people who earned them, like, hey, what's my NFT worth? I did put up a tournament this week. It didn't It didn't happen because I put it up for 10 players. And what I was trying to do is establish a value for them. I said, what's the best way? And of course, again, a market will establish the value. So I did the first, second, and third, one SPS. The fourth was one of our NFTs. The rest didn't. And I put it up for 10 players. Now I was one of them. It got to 8 players, but it didn't fill. So it just canceled out. But I thought, well, goodness, let's see if there's, besides the 3 people who think they can make the money back that they put in. I put it up for 10 SPS, but then you're going to have 6 players who aren't going to win anything. One will win an FT. So I thought, well, okay, well, if you have 10 SPS, to me that means that somebody's willing to risk 10 SPS at current price is 29 cents, 28 cents. To win that fourth place NFT. That to me gives you like an anchor for a value relative to earning, relative to utility that way. Okay, so I would tell you, since the tournament didn't happen, okay, it's not worth 28 cents. Maybe next week I'll put one up, or whenever it is later on. I'll do 5 SPS, whatever the price is, we'll see. But otherwise, it's really just comes down to bragging rights. I had mentioned to Matt Clark when we were talking, I was in his podcast, I said, to me, one of the winning, the way where I know, and I think this will come over time, when you have like the present, these NFTs, it'll be like, okay, let's say SPS one day gets to $1, and somebody says, oh, I won $25,000 playing Splinterlands for the year. A great accomplishment, right? But then somebody taps them on the shoulder and says, yeah, but do you have a presidential NFT? And then that person who won 25,000, even though it's $25,000, that's a lot of money. They're like, oh, damn it, no. And then the person who said, do you have a presidential NFT? They get tapped on the shoulder and goes, yeah, but do you have the Tournament of Champions presidential NFT? And then that one's like, no, damn it, I don't. So I don't know what that equates to. I have no idea, but there you go. There's some utility. There's some, there's some feelings in it all. But yeah, one day I think I would love if once we get to the Tournament of Champions, in my opinion, it's, like we get, we get to like a critical mass there, 10, 15 players that have won a presidential NFT, maybe that becomes, again, it matters. And the other part I was thinking of too, as you could tell, even me, I'm thinking of this as we're talking, but I think one of the things too is one of the ways to add a utility would be the trophy room that Weirdbeard's talking about. To the extent, again, we all have passion for the game. You want to be the best player. So, okay, we have a trophy room, and in that trophy room, these NFTs can be displayed. Again, more bragging rights. I think the other thing too is, goodness, where could it all go? It maybe, maybe one day. I mean, if I had enough money, maybe at the next Splinter Fest, we get together and we get a room, we have an open bar, and we all come together. Hey, well, I don't know. I mean,
it's even because of what I was alluding to is like if you win a tournament, like say you won our tournament, then you get an invitation to play in the Tournament of Champions, right? So definitely, man, it definitely opens a door to some possibility. It could even, if there's, which most likely is going to have the best of the best in, right? It could be something that Splinterlands could look into themselves in sponsoring possibly in the future.
Oh yeah, I think it's a direct, I mean, anybody can do this. There's no, the barriers to entry are very low. And I encourage it. I mean, let's have another, Discord with people. And because again, that to me, that's the lifeblood of the game itself. And so,
oh no, I wasn't saying that Splinterlands should do their own. I mean, it could be something that, like your Discord here, could be something that they would be interested in doing. You've got some big names in there. You got UA, you got Chapon, you got B Jangles.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, we got some.
Talk about fish out of water, bro.
Well, and the one thing I find I find fascinating, and I call it an experiment at times, and it really is. I don't know where this is going to end or whatever. I something just tells me just keep doing it. Let's just keep doing it, and Bjangles, you and I, I changed some DMs with you guys. I mean, my concern overall too was the ETH gas fees, the gas fees, because the way they've structured ETH now with this new iteration, ETH gets burned every time you use gas fees, and so theoretically the value should go up, the supply goes down. But figured out a way that we can I can create them using the Polygon network, but they still be on OpenSea. I think the key is that they be on OpenSea where the Roonies are. That was another thing when I said let's go to OpenSea because the game wants to be there with the Roonies. So I think that is a great platform. It's got the most eyes on it relative to NFTs, but but yeah, I just think we got to keep going and see where this goes. But and even so, I think the last on Sunday, so today's what, February 8th, the last stream with Aftersound and Darkest Night. Aftersound, let's do, he's even said like, hey, let's do a tournament together. Let's so maybe there's something there, but hopefully it becomes like the place to be. It's let's face it, and when you grow up, it's all about, a lot of it is about clicks, right? Being winning with the in crowd. I mean, and let's face it, I mean, no, pulling no punches. The in crowd is where all the most passionate people are. It's you guys. It's I'll say it's Aftersound, it's Darkest Night, it's Steve, it's Tales from the Crypt, it's Gank, it's Hawks 21 just came in. It's Griffin Park, who by the way is a great thinker. He's up and comer. That's where you want to be. That's where you want to be. Where I started with this, I'll stop after this. But the one thing I find is an experiment. There's people in here who will debate each other. I mean, in great detail in Mav chat. We know how Mav chat can go. It can just erupt, right? But in this Discord, I type 1,000 words to one word of everybody else says. I find it fascinating. Like, everybody's here. What's neat about it is, I think clearly we're here just to play the game in this Discord. There isn't any debate, so.
Yeah, I think you just kind of hit the key for me, Choonie, and the appeal. I had been aware, we've been around the game for better part of a year and a half between Wasco and myself, and I've certainly seen you on, Gank and Keys live streams, Aftersound's live stream. I've kind of seen your comments, and this is all prior to you kind of reaching out and making that introduction. But one of the big things for me, and I see the utility of your NFTs really being the keys to the kingdom of players only. And this goes back to the kind of comment that you referenced earlier about my belief that brawls and tournaments should be sacred ground from bots. Well, unfortunately, we have seen bots start to creep into some tournaments and kind of run away with big prizes. Well, fortunately for us, they don't really have an interest in the NFTs that you're offering, right? I guess that's kind of a double-edged sword a little bit, but the positive spin on that is only the people who want access to the tournaments that are purely people run and therefore, offer, a much more even keeled, skilled base, purely fun driven tournaments are going to be entering into these tournaments and therefore, wanting to take part in that community that you're building with your Discord. It's people only. There's not going to be bots that are kind of, at least not yet. There's not going to be bots that are trying to make their way in there.
Well, and to your point, BJ, in support of that, you're right. I mean, you don't see, I don't want to name the names or the group, but you don't see those players signing up for even the public tournaments, the tournaments where you enter to get the NFT to enter our Discord. And you're right. Yeah. So good, and I guess it's working. I guess it's working that way. So, but and the other part too, I'll say is our private tournaments. The other part I think about it, it's like, so I wasn't playing in the private tournaments because I committed to the community. I'm not going to just give things away. I'm not going to do anything like that. I had to earn my way, and frankly, or thankfully, I won an NFT in the Champagne Challenge that Stever sponsored. So now I get to play in our Presidential Cup NFTs. I wasn't going to do that before that, but what I'm trying to say with all that is that it just, yeah, I'm nobody. I feel like if you're in it is mailing it in, like Kolsker. He's another great player. So in Necromancer, when you're in our private tournaments, up pops B Jangles. Okay, I got no offense, man. I'm not gonna mail it in, dude. I'm gonna. I mean, I'm gonna have the best deck in the world, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna really think about it for a second. I'm not gonna be like click, click, click. Let me just get some rank, like in rank, let me just get some SPS, whatever. No, and Darkest Night pops. I'm like, oh man, I gotta look good. I gotta look good in front of Darkest Night. I gotta look in front of BJ. Here comes Waskel. I gotta look good. I can't lose. So I think that's another element that comes to it. Yeah, I don't feel like anybody's mailing it in our tournaments.
I completely agree, man. And we had Weirdbeard on, gosh, I guess the better part of a year ago at this point. He was, shout out to Weirdbeard. He was one of the first guys from the Splinterlands team that took us up on the offer of hopping onto the People's Guild. And one of the things that it's his very common thread in everything that he's trying to do is create those stories. And Choonie, this is testament to what you're doing, and testament to the wider community of Splinterlands. We're still, both good and bad. We're still small enough to where, I recognize Choonie, I recognize Darkest Night, I recognize Schnapoon, and I can put a face to the names of a lot of these guys, and it creates those storylines of, hey, Choonie, I whooped your butt in this last tournament, and you got revenge this one.
Right.
Hats off to you, and I can reach out to you on Discord, and we can have that shit talk exchange afterwards, and it just deepens the relationships of this community. It drives forward the storylines that are kind of being built behind the scenes, and gives the platform for that competition to play out. I'm all for what you're doing, man, and I appreciate the perseverance and the generosity that you put forward with creating these tournaments and reaching out to these big names, trying to expand the both the Discord community of the Splinterlands kind of universe as a whole. And yeah, thank you for everything you're doing, man. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, I appreciate it so much. I gotta say, I don't know. I don't know. I've watched your podcast. I don't think you put up videos, but for everybody, when B Jangles was saying that, he had a smile on his face. I could tell you that was sincere. And there you go. There's the intangible. There's that emotion, that feeling. Why wouldn't you want to give back to something like that? You know what I mean? I mean, put all the other stuff aside. Infidel. I really wanted to make sure I got this coming in. He made a comment in one of his recent streams. There was somebody was talking about the worst crypto games playing on YouTube. I want whatever it is. But he made a great point. Infidel in response to that, it's like last year was a great year where negativity sold well. And hopefully things are changing. You can tell things are changing. But what I'm trying to say is, yeah, this is all positive. And when I see you smile like you just did, I can tell that was sincere. Like you're into it. Again, put all that other stuff aside. And so it's just, why wouldn't you want to give back to something like that? There's so much. There's so many other things that are just aren't great. But I appreciate your comments, though. Really do.
Well, I think also it's just because we see it from the team as well, right? Like we see it. We're privileged to see Aggie every week in the town hall. We're also privileged whenever Matt arrives into town as well, and it just I don't know. Like I said it in the last podcast, whenever I see Matt, it just or afterwards, you just feel everyone just gets that uplift. It's kind of like I said it before as well, like when just before a battle, like you just get that rally cry from your leader as well. And and like you're going to be chatting with Weirdbeard as soon, right? So that's like you actually kind of interacting with the team. So you like us as players, when we do see this, just like you just get even more, just like more pumped for the game, but just more kind of incentivized to kind of keep doing what we're doing. Like, so with regard to that round table, what could you talk a bit more about that? Like, what is it going to be about, and what do you kind of think might happen as a result of it?
Well, I don't know is the answer. We had to sign non-disclosure agreements. I think so for instance, I don't know if you'll see like Icy Flow. He's around making a lot of comments. I think he's going to be involved. Walking Keys mentioned the other night he's going to be involved. But so they're very it hasn't. Tomorrow's the first meeting, Thursday, and then Saturday morning is I guess the second meeting of the same topic. And my idea is, my understanding is they're going to propose some thoughts about gameplay. I think around tournaments in specific, and they're looking for feedback. That's really what it is. So we get an opportunity to provide feedback, but not disclose what's being talked about. Um, so looking forward to it. I don't know what I mean. Gosh, I don't know. uh, to me, I mean, one of the things I will say, I'm hoping they come up with something like, and I don't know if people respond to this too much, but like I'm really looking forward into that. That's the other part when you do this stuff. It's like different formats of tournaments. There's it can be so diverse. Right now, we got like the salute to the Super Bowl. I put up with Griffin Park, high low. High means you win SPS. Low, if you're the least, the lowest five on the results page gets an NFT for our Discord. And sorry, I'm digressing just a little bit, Wasco, but to me, I think they're going to ask about different formats of tournaments or propose that to us. I just don't know yet. I haven't seen it, but I'm hoping that's what it is. I mean, I'm all for something like even Splinter specific tournaments. I know some people don't like that, but I can't say it enough. I've played this game to a point now for, I mean, more than a year. To me, the real masters, the ones who know it cold, are the ones who know card placement. So I hear the thing about, okay, let's just, if I say, okay, let's just have a Death Splinter tournament. Obviously, we're going to see a lot of the same cards, and we're going to put in a lot of the same lineups is what I'm trying to say. But to me, what's the difference maker? It's the placement of the cards. That I think is really where, if you can consistently do that, I think you win. I think you win more often than you lose. And so I'm hoping we get to the point where they're talking about tournaments where those kind of things really come out, the true skill players. And so, but more to come. I mean, we'll see. But that's the way I understand things. And I said it with Matt Clark the other last time is, I don't know if you guys, I mean, I don't know if you guys play long online poker a lot, but even to this day, you can always get a game going. You can always get into a sit and go tournament. Wait just a few minutes and you're in. And I would love it if I think it's a good thing for the company as a whole if we can get some kind of format going like that, where 6 to 9 players come in, you put in your SPS, whatever it is, only the top 2 or 3 win. And that's all revenue. That's all revenue for the team. It's the company, and then they charge a fee. You pay let's say you pay 10 SPS plus you pay 11 SPS. 10 goes to the pot, 1 goes to the company. If we can get to a critical mass like that, where we see those things going off every 5-10 minutes, to me that's going to be another sign that, hey, we're getting there. We're getting traction. And frankly, that's at a level where people start to think they can make. I know that already people think they can do this, but many people start to think they can make a living at that. I mean, because people make a living at that, So, but hey, I went off on a tangent a little bit there, so forgive me. But that's what I understand as far as what Weirdbeard's doing right now. Clearly, there's a real emphasis though on keeping things, whatever they show us, keeping it quiet, which you got to respect. But yeah, I'm like you. When I see Matt and them come to the town hall, all those things, that's all great. I can't say it enough. I think they have a swagger. I look at the body language. It just looks different. It looks different than it has the last few months. And I mean, I'm very positive. I mean, that way. It's good. So anyway.
Well, I think it's what they talk about, isn't it? They talk about just their projection for the future. Like I was listening to Aggie yesterday on Walking Keys and Ganks, and Aggie's just got big plans. And as a player, when I hear that, I'm like, whoa! Like he's dropping names like the NFL and Warner Brothers, and this is not small fry.
Well, and what I took from those comments too, and it was a great get by Gank. I think he said, "Hey, Aggie, come," and he did. So yeah, again, props to they don't hide. I mean, if somebody's doing something that's not right, they hide. these guys don't hide. I mean, so again, another indication everything's cool. But what I took from what Aggie was saying is that this company's bigger than even Splinterlands. It's bigger than the card game. It's bigger than Tower Defense. It's bigger. What I think they're trying to do is they're trying to get it to where it's almost like a consulting firm. Hey, you look at everything we've done, even this bot situation. Okay, whatever you think about bots, we put all that aside. They have addressed bots. They've made it so that, I mean, look at the battles. Look at the numbers. I mean, After Sound again. Look at his videos. I mean, whatever they've done has affected bots. So if you want to develop a game, I mean, when I first got in this game, there's a game called Crabata. I mean, it was these digital crabs, It was like, I mean, there's all kinds of things going on. Again, the player mon. I mean, go on and on. But but if you want to develop a game now and you're worried about bots coming in, goodness, go look at Splinterlands. They've been battling bots forever. So and they'll help you out. And so it's becoming a consulting company. So I think all of us have to really zoom out. One of the keys, in the world is zoom out and realize where we are and what's going on. And that, yeah, this company is going to be bigger than this card game. But again, that should accrue to all of us. We're all investors. I mean, we're not equity holders, but I mean, when you buy cards, you invest. You're saying I believe in where this is all going to go. So that's what I took from his comments during that exchange. And again, all positive. There's nothing wrong with being part of that. So we'll see though.
Yeah, that's a great. I'm glad you called that out, Choonie. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but Chatter posted something in the official Splinterlands Discord earlier today, about 12 hours ago, announcing that Splinterlands had officially crossed that 2 billion transaction threshold. And it's picking up traction. I think at the time that he posted it, he said that 175 different publications had picked it up and distributed it as part of their own press releases. So yeah, it's testament to what the guys are doing, and yeah, just look for. I think we've got a very bright future, and I'm right there with you, Choonie. I think my conviction in this game and the future of what the Splinterlands universe can bring to gaming and to blockchain and Hive as a whole. It hasn't been shaken. It's been kind of refounded and bolstered. Yeah, just want to add that.
Yeah, and I think that metric's very important. I've said some comments, and in fact, what you said, you see me making comments. I'm trying to support the content creators too. Let's keep the discussion going. But I think, yeah, I think that's a very important metric. And so people talk about bots, and again, I'm not defending bots or anything like that, but bottom line is, let's face it. I mean, we want this to be a going concern. I mean, it all accrues down to us ultimately. And if because of bots they need a metric where they say 2 billion transactions occurred, well, that's the positive effect of it all. And again, that's just the way it is. And that's it. And so yeah, it's and we got to count on them, which I think they're very adept at doing. Of getting that out there to the masses, and let's see where it goes.
Nice, man. Yeah, let's see where it goes. Indeed, I've got like a question here, maybe as we're
Sure.
kind of winding down, but like I've got a son, and I'm kind of trying to think about his future, and you've had all this experience within the markets, 30 years, and I suppose we can count the time you've been investing in Splinterlands as well. But and I don't know what your situation is with your family, but like what advice would you give to like a young person who's kind of just starting out investing? Like what that would help benefit them for their future?
Investing, oh boy. Well,
And
I think
not financial advice, of course.
yeah, no, that's fine. I think, gosh, what I would say is, what you gotta remember is investing is these days is commoditized. I think, I mean, what I would say is, how to say this in a nice way, the buy and hold stuff, okay, you got to be careful, because you can buy and hold, and that mantra of that the markets are going to go up is right. I mean, well, let me just backtrack. That's a deep question to ask. So what I'll say is this: is the thing you got to remember is this. Okay, markets go up about 85% of the time, and they go down about 15%. Okay, 85% of the time, it's kind of creeping up. 15% of the time, it's brutal. Okay, and you should look at last year. Okay, classic example. Actually, more of an example than any right now because of the way things happened. Um, but I would tell you from an investing perspective, what you got to do is timing's everything. You can buy and hold, so you can buy today. I mean, let's just say the market's near a bottom. I mean, um, depends where things go. It's a tricky situation. Liquidity injections happen because of the pandemic, which is totally unique. But generally speaking, you can buy today, and let's say it'll be up from here. Okay, but at some point it's gonna correct. And I lived through this. And back in '08, I mean, I can't tell you the money I lost, the retirement I lost. I had options and things because I was working for corporations, and the strike price it went down so low, it was all gone, all gone. And thank God I wasn't retiring in '08. I would have been up shit's creek. Pardon the pun. I would have been, effed, frankly. And what I can say is you got to be careful in buying into that buy and hold idea. Now, your best returns will come from that, but it's all about timing. And the hardest decision you will ever make when it comes to investing, no matter what anybody tells you, is selling, not buying. Buying is so damn easy. Selling is hard. And if you want to, so we were changed. I mean, I day traded for about a year, made a living at it. Had some ups and downs and everything, but there's a quote. I don't think it was J.P. Morgan, but one of the old, maybe it's one of them. Who knows? You can look it up. But the bottom line is, I think the concept that's helped me a lot with all that stuff is I got really rich selling too early. And you got to remember that. You got to remember that when it comes to cryptocurrencies. You got to remember that when it comes to anything. And so what I would tell a young investor is buy and hold, but you can't be afraid to sell. And you can't be afraid to leave some money on the table. If you're afraid to leave some money on the table, don't bother. It's the same thing even with gambling, right? I mean, even though those odds are skewed against you, and one of the best games to play is craps, by the way, to learn this. You got to be able to walk away. So it's like, hitting like playing a slot machine. You got to be able to walk away and you got some money. So the key is to be able to, again, you got to be comfortable with selling no matter what. And I would tell you, don't bother paper trading. Everybody talks about, oh, I'm going to paper trade. I got this model. I got all this, whatever. Yeah, okay. I've seen optimization. I've seen the most complicated models with optimization blow up, right? And so and you can't paper trade. Paper trade, it gets back to what I said earlier about our Discord. There's no skin in the game when you paper trade. I can assure you, man, when you have skin in the game, it's a totally different feel. And so be careful. Don't paper trade. What I would tell you is if you're going to invest, if you want to do that, go down that path, take a tiny bit of money and use real money. You're not going to learn anything paper trading. Everything looks so good on paper, everything. So I guess for a young person, be careful of the buy and hold marketing, frankly, line you get from everybody. Don't be afraid to sell. And yeah, paper trading's for bums, man. That's for chumps. Put a little skin in the game and learn it. And you can do it. But what you have to do is if you want to, there's a difference between swing trading, day trading, investing. If you're going to day trade, you got to have short little windows. And what I mean by that is you got to catch those little trends during the day. There's ways you can leverage it. There's triple levered ETFs, which I would say are the greatest gifts to the small investors in the world. It provides you leverage with where you're just buying and selling. It's not true leverage, but where you're buying and selling, and a dollar can turn into a couple dollars. Triple levered, like triple Q, TQQ, those kind of things. And what you got to do is you got to find those small little windows where you get that uptrend, during a day if you want to day trade. But you got to be able, like, you got to go in and say, okay, if it's trading at a dollar and it goes up to $1.20, I'm selling. Put, you want to put some discipline in, use limit orders, and just let them hit, and that's it. And don't be upset if it goes to $1.20, you sell, but then in 10 minutes it goes to $1.50. No, you're done. You're done. So so in the end, for a young investor, it's investing is gosh, how can I'm trying to be nice with it all. Investing is a term that's sounds better than it is. Don't buy into it. So just don't get caught short, and in the end. And so I think that's the best way I can put it. I don't know when you say a young investor, you mean somebody who's trying to make a living at it, or
No, just someone like thinking, yeah, because this like one of the things I take away from this conversation as well, you thinking, you think long term, right? That's what I'm kind of thinking as
I
well.
used to, Wasco, but I
Oh.
don't anymore. And this is coming from somebody who's been in the industry. I mean, it was a risk, man. I mean, I whatever, I don't know, but I don't anymore. Where I come out with it all is that um, it's again, it's timing. So don't you just can't be afraid to sell, and you can't be afraid then later on to sit there, because eventually things are going to correct. And every cycle there's some kind of new nuance that looks different. Last one was liquidity. And you really got to check yourself too, because you got to look at the market now. I mean, candidly, again, of course, I'm biased with Bitcoin, but in my opinion, not financial advice, but Bitcoin is more likely to go up 10 times than the equity than stocks. I mean, you just say, okay, our equity's going to go up. So what's the trade in now? Let's say the S&P's at 4, it's got a 4,000 handle. I don't even look today, but let's say it does. You think it's going to be at 40,000? I don't know, right? Bitcoin could be at what is it now? Is it 20,000 ish? So there's all that stuff about, is it digital gold? There's all these kind of things, but when you compare the market cap to what Bitcoin is now, it could get there. Maybe it could. So if you're going to take a shot, be more into that kind of stuff, and being more into where it's more likely to happen. Of course, there's going to be more risk, but the other thing I would say too is with it all is you have to. I think, again, not financial advice, but I think Bitcoin's got one more round to it. And what I mean when I talk about that is because the genie's out of the bottle, and the genie isn't out of the bottle from everybody talks about, like, going to YouTube, you hear all this stuff about, and you're talking about young investor. This is what I tell my kids, right? So, you go on to YouTube. Oh, there's all these wallets, there's all this adoption, all that, the Metcalfe's law, and all this network stuff. And I agree. I agree with all that kind of stuff. However, the genie's out of the damn bottle, because I think in the end, this is all speculation on my part. We're talking about regulation. We're talking about all these things lined up together. I think for a long time, or for these last few years, the banks, let's say capital markets, they've been looking over at DeFi and going, hey, how come they can make money doing this and we can't? Because what they're doing is against the rules. So everybody talks about all this regulation and stuff. Well, what's going to happen, in my opinion, is regulation is going to come to DeFi. It's going to look like regular, I'm going to say regular capital markets. And what's going to happen then is that's going to level the playing field between the banks and DeFi. And they'll coexist. But in the end, the whole game and the whole end game, in my opinion, is that the banks want to do the digital stuff too, so they can make the fees. It's all about fees. And why I think in the case of Bitcoin in particular, why the genie's out of the bottle, not because of network adoption, all these things you'll hear all them talk about, it's because they can make fees. Look at, you got companies like Fidelity offering, hey, I think it's Fidelity. You can go there. You can trade Bitcoin, or not trade it, but they'll custody it. All these things are coming out. You're going to see larger firms, as long as they can make fees dealing in Bitcoin, it's going to exist. Because don't underestimate the influence of the financial industry on the politicians, aka the regulators. So a young investor, I think, I'd point them to that. I think because it has legs because of those things. It has another leg. It has another round to go. So and frankly, again, that's more likely to go up 5 times than I think the market is. I don't know if the S&P is ever going to be 20,000. So this gets back to a lot like back in the 90s with the market and the internet and all this kind of stuff. Back then people used to laugh. Dow 30,000. Remember when that book came out? Everybody's making fun of it. Well, take a look at it. We've been at Dow 30,000 now for a while. But from the 90s to now, that happened. So 20 years later, it did happen, or 30 years later, whatever we're at 20 years. Well, I think the Bitcoin type of thing, I think this is the next thing that can happen. It could be another 90s to the 2020s type of thing. So I don't know. I was all over the place with that, but I just can't emphasize enough. The buy and hold thing is overdone, man. It's a great selling thing. It'll work, but you can't be afraid to sell. That's what it really gets down to. If you said, what's the one thing to take away? Don't be afraid to sell, and don't be upset. I guarantee you, when you sell, it's going to go up. I guarantee it. It will go up. But you know what? Walk away, take your money, because you got really wealthy selling too early. Hey, good outcome in the end.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if that helped you. I don't know if that answers your question, but
sage wisdom there, Choonie. I appreciate you opening up the mind of Choonie to the masses here. We certainly appreciate the wisdom that you're
that could be a
imparting on the
career
people.
ender, so you won't see my picture.
Oh, good thing you're hiding behind Choonie.
Yeah, behind the E.
Yeah, there you go. Well, Choonie, we want to be mindful of our time here. Start wrapping up, and I know we've got a Super Bowl tournament coming up this weekend. It looks like there's still quite a few spots to be filled. I saw that we've got a tournament with Hawks coming around the bend as well. Is there anything else that you want to kind of call out before we start wrapping up?
I'll be quick. So speaking with Gank, going back and forth, he's a big basketball player. If you follow their stuff, and so we're gonna do a March Madness, the big dance type of thing. Trying to figure out the format for that. And do I get to ask you guys one question though?
Bring it on.
When's our next tournament, man? What about you guys? So yeah, we gonna get something going here. I know you're going to work me hard, but I think the one thing I will add to what our Discord, I put up a leaderboard, and so again, it's an experiment. We'll get better at it, but trying to score these NFTs, trying to give some points, because hey, at the end of 6 months, if you got if you got enough points, we'll have some unique NFTs there. Again, they're just NFTs, but in the end, I'm looking forward to hopefully if you guys, because the bottom line, in case nobody knows, these guys got 100, the first full tournament ever subscribed to, and started early. I remember, I think it was B. Jang. I think you came back. You're like, we're going to get this going. We're going to get this filled up. I think both of you guys. I think Waspy did the same thing, and so I was so impressed with that. And the only thing I've noticed, and last thing I'll say about this is, I think with these soulbound cards, what I'm noticing is even tournament entries have gone down. And one thing I think you'll see with our Discord and the tournaments themselves, they're good barometers. They're good barometers for the game and where players are and things like that. And so, so we'll see where it all goes. Maybe when we're talking about our tournaments, maybe 50 is a better number. But again, back to your original question, BJ. In the end, that's the next one I think we're talking about, and hopefully we can get something going again with After Sound and Darkest Night. I think they want to do something, and then hoping to do something with you guys too.
Yeah, I think so. Wasco and I were talking about it, and I think we'd love to kind of set the cadence with you, Choonie, and do quarterly tournaments. So we ran one January. I think April would probably be the next one. There's a big, and I think we were kind of looking to schedule, because Wasco and I are both based in Taiwan, kind of scheduling these events with around Chinese cultural holiday themed stuff. So at the beginning of April, there's a big national holiday for Tomb Sweep. Tomb Sweep Day. So just on the surface, it sounds like Midjourney is going to have its work cut out for it and for itself, and coming up with some fantastic artwork. And I have no idea, no problem believing that you are going to be able to prompt some pretty cool stuff out of that. So yeah, I would say we're probably a good 5-6 weeks out before the next one, but yeah, ideal time frame would probably be early April.
Okay.
For the next People's Guild tournament. Yeah.
Well, I'm grinning from ear to ear. I just, in the end, the fact that you guys have acknowledged what I'm doing, what our Discord's doing, again, it makes me feel good. That's the intangible. So I can't thank you enough. I can't put money on that. I don't know what that's worth. It's worth more than SP, all those things. And so, and I think that's an important thing that people miss about what this platform brings. It's such an anchor point for everybody's passion. And no matter what, there's a lot of opinions out there in this community, a lot of opinions and a lot of people don't agree with, but man, there's one thing is clear is the IQ is high. When you read and hear what people write and say and do, there's not many dumb people here. I don't think there's any, you know what I mean? Like it's just so, it's like you feel like the tables are levitating in the room, in the digital room. And so there's just so much there. So I just can't emphasize enough. I hope everybody keeps that stuff in mind. Not to sound too, off the charts here, because it really does get down to, I know people want to earn the money, but yeah, don't discount it, because in the end, if this platform wasn't here, a lot of these things I've talked about, people would miss. You'd miss it. Bottom line is you'd miss it. And you really do that reconciliation in your own head. I'd miss it. And so anyway, so I guess that's the last few words I'd get in.
Well, Choonie, I think I speak for both of us and on behalf of the People's Guild community that we've kind of grown over the past better part of the year. We appreciate all of what you're doing within the game, continuing to be patient and so generous with your time and your DEC, and putting together the Discord. And I know you've invested a little bit into getting Midjourney up and running and the transferring of the NFTs. Nothing that you're doing is free. And I want to say a tremendous thank you from myself and from the People's Guild and from the community. We love what you're doing, and hopefully there's no end in sight. I'm stoked to hear that Weirdbeard reached out to you, and he's obviously speaking from within the company, representing the tournaments side of the business and bringing you on board. I think, hats off to Weirdbeard for taking the initiative to bring you into that inner circle. And I look forward to seeing what comes out of it. And yeah, can't wait for our next tournament. Appreciate you stopping by, and it's always so much fun. That's one of my favorite things about the podcast is we're able to bring on so many different voices from who knows what kind of experience they're bringing to the table, and you're just another fantastic guest that we've had on with amazing experience that you're bringing to the table, and it's so unique, and it's such a cool perspective that you've kind of shed light on through your 3-4 decades of real world experience that you're bringing to the table here with Splinterlands. And yeah, just a huge thank you from me personally and from us at the podcast for doing what you're doing and taking the time out of your day to hop on here and shoot the breeze with us. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And last thing I'll say is it keeps me young, and that's worth more to me than anything. It keeps me young. So I can't much appreciated. Those are very nice words. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I also want to say a big thank you as well. I think you mentioned the word intangibles many times throughout the podcast, and I think one of the great ones as well is like you yourself, like just like you've like popped up out of the rabbit hole, and just bringing like Ben said, lots of experience and knowledge to the table, but also just great ideas, man. And I think it just also gives people who maybe are just thinking, or wanting to do something within the community. I think seeing people like you surface and get things going definitely will inspire people within our community to get things working as well, because there's so many great minds, so many great ideas banded around. That's why I'm kind of so happy with these roundtable meetings that you and Weirdbeard are going to be participating in. I think it bodes well for the future of the game. So a big thank you. It's been great meeting you in person as well. I was really, as soon as I heard that podcast, I knew this was going to be a great one, and you were just going to be a fun person to have on. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. And I'm happy to talk some more too. And so much appreciated.
In the future, for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to get you back on for part 2 of Tangents with Choonie.
Yeah, Tangents with Choonie.
that should be your Twitter handle, Choonie. Let's we'll talk off air about getting your Twitter going.
Okay, sounds great.
So for everyone out there, you have been listening to
The People's Guild.